Sales Association. Today's webinar is called Coming Out Strong in a Post-COVID Economy and features a sales leader roundtable and Q&A session. As the Canadian economy begins to adjust to the new normal, it's more important than ever for organizations to have strong sales leadership. Organizations with unclear plans to adapt to the new economy coming out of the COVID-19 crisis will have trouble surviving as buyers become more discerning with their budgets. Today, with international speaker and sales trainer Shane Gibson and our panel of sales leaders from across Canada, we will have a roundtable discussion on adapting sales strategies as we come out of the COVID-19 crisis. So for today's agenda, we will dissect insights from our latest survey on COVID-19's impact on the sales profession, hear from sales leaders on what plans they have to strengthen their sales in the expected economic climate, and have a Q&A session on how businesses can adapt and prepare to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic as a stronger company. Now a little bit on our webinar moderator today. This is Shane Gibson. Shane Gibson is a Vancouver-based international speaker, author, and B2B and enterprise sales trainer who has addressed over 200,000 people over 25 years on stages in North America, Southern Africa, India, Dubai, Malaysia, and South America. He is known as one of Canada's foremost speakers on the topic of social media and sales performance. As a trainer, coach, and motivational speaker, he combines a diverse background in Salesforce leadership, new entrepreneur development, and extensive sales and leadership coaching. Shane is the co-founder and facilitator of the Enterprise Sales Professional Certification Program, delivered in partnership with the Canadian Professional Sales Association. And he has been named number 5 on the Forbes.com list of the top 30 social salespeople in the world. Today's panelists are leaders from across Canada. We have CPSA's very own president and CEO, Joy Sayers. Joy, can you take a second to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm Joy, as Rupalin just mentioned. I'm the president and CEO of the Canadian Professional Sales Association. As some of you probably can attest to in sales, sales was a career, and I'm older, as I would say, came out of commerce and fell into what I say is the sales profession. And once you get the sales hook, you never leave it. So I came out of a finance and quantitative analysis background, ended up in sales in the high-tech industry with IBM. And for 40 years, I've worked in high-tech and financial markets in a sales capacity and business development. I'm really proud of that. And as the leader of the association in this country, helping the sales community, I look at everybody in their organization as being in sales, whether you've got a sales title, a business development role, you could be the president, you could be the janitor, it doesn't matter. You're all about selling what it is you represent and how you represent yourself. And so I'm a very proud person to be in sales. I'm working very hard. You can see the sign beside me here. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Sales is a great career. And I'm all about encouraging people to do that and learning how to take best practices and make them yours. Thank you, Rupalin.
Thank you so much, Joy. Next, we have Robert DeCary, who also is a certified sales leader. He is a general manager at Vehicle Personalization of Canada and Parts Midwest Incorporated. Robert, do you have a second to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with what Joy said. The center of the universe for me is sales. It colors my world, even in personal relationships. If you can't make people feel good about the interaction of doing business with you on a professional or personal level, then why even bother? It's the center of the universe. So I stumbled into sales too a very long time ago. I started off in school as a theater major. And as a theater major, well, wasn't a lot to do with that afterwards. So sales was was a very obvious and low-hanging fruit for me. So spent a lot of time at the very basic level. I'm talking door to door when I was younger, and started off in automotive about 25 years ago, working at a car dealership. And through my career, I've been lucky enough to associate myself with companies that have an overriding strong sense of values, that help them differentiate themselves in the market. So I find myself today in this role here as general manager for our Canadian operation and our US operations, and I'm talking to you today from beautiful Minnesota. So thanks for having me as part of this panel today.
Thank you, Robert. Next, we have Marie Mahar, who is the Director of Sales at the Canadian Professional Sales Association.
Thank you, Brooklyn, and hello to everybody. I've been with the CPSA for about 4.5 months now. I was lucky to join the first week right prior to COVID. That was a bit of a surprise. And I've got a sales background for about 25 years in telecommunications. My first job in sales was right out of university with the sales training organization for 2 years. So I found my way back here again because I've absolutely got a passion for curiosity, understanding how the dots connect within a business and what we can do to help enable them. So I love the contact and the constant research that you're encouraged to do when it comes to sales. And I really appreciate the relationships by being able to connect with all types of businesses in sales. So I definitely have a passion for the training aspect coming from the profession. And I believe that if you can take the best training once, you probably don't need to invest after that from a sales perspective, and CPSA has got that accreditation. So thanks to everyone for joining today, and thank you, Rupert.
Thank you, Marie. We've got Doug Brown as well, Senior Product Manager of Torvan Medical.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Interesting to hear Robert's background because my schooling, I was a film major. So kind of fell into sales as well, coming out of that, originally in the audiovisual industry, and I've been involved in the medical industry for the past 35 years. It's like everybody, it's a joy. I love dealing with people, meeting their needs, solving the problems, and like that's a big part of what we do. And you know, I'm lucky I'm in an industry that with COVID, we were an essential service. We've been going strong all through this. But I'm, very interested to see what other people are going to say about coming out of this, because I know there are going to be major changes as to the way business is going to be done. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Doug. And we also have Dale Comasodi, who is District Sales Manager at Penequip. Hi, Dale.
Hi. Well, again, thank you very much for having me part of this wonderful panel. My background in schooling was in automotive, and apparently I didn't like to get my hands dirty. I much preferred to talk to people, so I also fell into the world of sales, and vibrant curiosity and understanding why people do what they do has always been a passion of mine, and it is led to a very successful career in sales. And I've been in the industrial aspect of sales for the last 25 plus years, and also the wide scope of vendors that we and manufacturers that we represent at Penequip, we've been deemed essential through COVID. So it's been definitely some unique challenges, and solving the problems that our business partners have developed over years, and definitely the new ones that have jumped up and punched everybody in the face with COVID have been unique and challenging. So the opportunity to be on the panel and discuss with some other great people and be part of the CPSA as well is also going to be an interesting experience that I'm really looking forward to. So again, thank you for having me and being part of this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much to our panel and our moderator, Shane, today for being part of such a valuable webinar. I'm just going to take a moment to go through some housekeeping rules. So please note that all of our attendees today have been placed on mute for the duration of the webinar, and that you may ask any questions that you may have at the end using the question function in your GoToWebinar dashboard. So without further ado, I will now hand it over to Shane to start.
Thank you, Rupert. So I think it's good to take a look at kind of where sales leaders across the country are and kind of what perspective they have on what's happening. And CPSA did a recent study and found that 98% of sales leaders are very or somewhat concerned about the state of business during the pandemic. And 45% of respondents are concerned about the economic impact due to disruptions to the normal course of business. And 33% have cash flow or revenue concerns due to a downturn in sales. I also know that just talking to my clients and working through the major challenges they have, one of the even challenges like moving your organization to a real digital first environment, because all of your customers are now essentially wanting to engage with you remote if at all possible. That alone has provided a challenge to the majority of my clients, and it's a steep learning curve for many. So I know, depending on our industry, there's some really unique challenges. And so what I want to do with these sales leaders we get on the panel today is dig into some of these challenges and look at how they're impacting them, but also what the unique solutions they found around them are. So let's, I've got my first question here. So my first question is, over the past month, how concerned have you or your business been about the COVID-19 outbreak? And I'll start with Joy. What's your concern look like over the last month?
Okay, so I think, we went into the COVID. I know the exact date, and I know you all do as well. March 13th, I had my all hands meeting with my staff, and I said, when you leave the office today, take your laptop, take whatever you need to work. We thought it was going to be 30. I said, let's max out 60 days, guys. So I think you would all agree on the panel, like we had no idea it was going to be this way. So we saw at the very beginning, particularly in the business that we're in our association, our members are focused on the benefits through hotel partnerships and various travel benefits. On the other hand, our big focus has been on professional development for the sales community. And we really focused a lot on doing that in person. So public courses, private on-site. And so we saw a huge hit immediately to the bottom line. If you're asking about the last month, which you are, what we've seen is a change in behavior. We've seen that people are now starting to go back to work. And as you know, across Canada, I'm in downtown Toronto. We're still not in the phase where, I'm in my office building. I feel very safe and comfortable. However, it's not, widely open for people to be here. There are other parts of the country where it is more acceptable to be there and governed by the health authorities. But we have noticed in our business that in the last month, people are feeling more comfortable with their safety. They're feeling more comfortable with wearing masks. They're feeling more comfortable that their health and well-being is looked after. From a business perspective, interesting, last week I got some statistics from our benefits and partnerships lead, and we're seeing that from even a hotel perspective, we're getting 50% occupancy at hotels, 70% in some provinces. So if you think about it, people aren't traveling outside of Canada, they're in the country. And we're seeing that people are all of a sudden getting out there, being a bit more free, opening themselves up. So in terms of business for us, we're seeing that people are renewing their memberships where they weren't sure what they were going to do. They're feeling a little bit more free about that. They're feeling a bit more comfortable with doing online programs and learning and development. And so in the last month, we've seen a huge shift in people's mindset, that people in the country are feeling good. What do I worry about? And we can talk about that a little bit later. Is there going to be a resurgence or what might happen? So there's a little bit of a damper, but we are seeing that the loss of business has stopped and that things are starting to move on a very steady upward stream.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and I think that the willingness to do some short-term planning anyways is there. Like they might not want to commit to something in January, but they're willing to look at this window and take action, which I think is a positive note, right? It's good for the economy. It's good for our psyche, right? As sales professionals, entrepreneurs, citizens. So Robert, I'd be curious to hear your perspective. You've got a unique perspective because you're a Canadian. Up until recently, you were in Canada. Now you're down in the US. So I'd be really curious to see and hear, sort of what concerns have arisen over the last month within your business and industry on both sides of the border?
Well, it is kind of unique because I've seen both worlds, Canada and the US, and while there's some, similarities, there's also some vast differences. I can say from a business point of view, it's not as dire as it was a few months ago. We're tied to the automotive industry, so as the OEMs shut down production in their facilities, that's where we took a big hit and a big dive. June was a good month for us. July was even better. August is off to a great start. So our focus is really more around how it affects the mental and emotional health of our employees. We're more concerned about, for those that fall into two different categories, believer or non-believer, for want of a better descriptor. We're more concerned about how these two groups are affecting each other as they interact socially at work. So we have to make sure we have a safe environment, follow the distancing protocols, make sure we recognize that some people are comfortable wearing masks, some are not, and we have to respect those differences within our organization. So in the past month, our concerns have been more around the people than the actual state of the business, because things are picking up for us.
Yeah, and it's fantastic because investing in the mental well-being of your people, that really translates into the well-being of your organization over the long term. So, I mean, it's a good humanistic approach, and it's a good bottom line approach. So I appreciate that very much. Marie, I'd love to hear your perspective on. It seems like both the first panelists kind of answered the first and second question a bit, so maybe we'll combine this because it seems to work better. And so, because we're all reading ahead in our notes, essentially. So, what's been happening for you in the last month as far as concerns, and primarily, what's the big concern for you and your company?
I would say a lot of the concern is around when the COVID impact will end. So we're building our plan a little differently in a good way. We've been able to look at extending different partnerships and channel partners that we've developed throughout COVID, which is a really good exercise for us from a sales perspective. So we've taken a look at things in the first couple of months where we were more concerned about things being delayed, and we've turned that opportunity into developing new relationships and partnerships with alignment through different businesses, different government organizations. So I think that for us in the past month, we put our foot to the pedal on that, and we focused on trying to come out of COVID in a healthier perspective, and realizing this may happen again in Q4. So we're changing some of the activity we're doing with some of those other relationships. I'm still concerned about when it will end, so we need to have this contingency plan to make sure that some other good activity going to build the volume of work we're doing.
Absolutely, and I think it's wise to build that resiliency into the business so that if you need to pivot back to fully digital and look at that, I think you do the things that can stand that type of sort of pendulum swing, which I think we're going to have a moderate swing anyways, depending upon the market. We've seen this in parts of the US. They opened and closed and opened again. So Doug Brown, love to hear your perspective, Doug, on this situation as well.
From our standpoint, from a business standpoint, as I mentioned before, we've been pretty steady through this whole thing. We distribute throughout Canada and throughout the US and even other parts of the world, Chile and that. And, so from a business standpoint, things have been pretty good. I think it all comes down to the concern for our people. We want to make sure that everybody stays safe, stays healthy, that nobody would come into the office that would be sick. We have production people in the back that have had to be here the full time. So they're the ones that we've really looked after the most. I only started coming back into the office about 3 weeks ago. I worked from home from, it was March 19th after I came back from vacation in Florida when I had to quarantine for 2 weeks anyways and that. But I think as time is going on, people are becoming, as you say, things are opening up more. Not everybody's in the office yet, but we do come in, we social distance, We do a lot of Microsoft Teams from the standpoint for meetings and even with customers as well. So, but so I think the primary concern is, we have salespeople and distributors out there who are anxious, like they want to get out themselves and get out and visit customers and the like. So, but we just want everybody to keep safe. That's the major thing. We don't want to have to go through all this again.
And I think by the nature, salespeople, we're people, right? We love to connect with people. That's one of the reasons why we're in sales, is that human connection. And so it's difficult. And I've seen that within the sales organizations I've been working with, is some of the sales pros have done absolutely fine just sitting on the phone all day talking to clients or doing video, and others, their productivity has been struggling. And when you dig into it, it's that lack of human connection. They really like being around the office. They like connecting with customers. That's why they chose the career, right? So there is some adjustments that are needed. Yeah, absolutely. So Dale, I'd love to hear Dale's perspective on really over the past month, how concerned have you and your business been about the COVID-19 outbreak, and then what's been your primary concern?
Well, over the past month, we got locations across Canada, and over the past month, we have unlocked our sales force across Canada, where they've actually been allowed to get back out and start seeing customers on an as needed basis. Certainly our customers are not, the social visits aren't happening anymore. We've got the team has to have a good reason, and certainly not all of our business partners are back up and running at a full capacity. So the dynamics of our consultative selling process has changed a little bit, and have to adapt to it. And certainly a lot of our sales team was certainly feeling a little bit of a chain to the desk syndrome, because they were missing that social interaction of actually seeing their customers too. So there was definitely some concern there, some cabin fever, so to speak, that we had to work through as they were adapting to video calls, Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, and phone calls as we were still going. But more and more customers across the country are starting to open up and getting into seeing them. So we are seeing a real shift in the way that our business partners are also actually doing business, because we have to, our food plants, they're really locked down as to who's coming into their facilities, because they've got to control the COVID outbreak and the potential for one there as well. On our business side, we still don't have all of our office staff in the office. Only our warehouse staff and our distribution personnel are back in there. We still have everybody working from home to help control a potential outbreak there, because that could be crippling to our business itself. On our vendor side and manufacturing side, this is also a struggle, because there's a lot of in the PPE world, there's a lot of unicorns right now. At the beginning of the pandemic, N95s and face masks for regular level 3 masks were unicorns, hot commodities, only available to healthcare workers. Hand sanitizer, Purell, Gojo products, only available to healthcare workers. Where our industrial markets, our guys working in open pit mines, these are, and welders, these are all necessary products for them to work safely as well, that have to find workarounds, and products just aren't available. Now it's nitrile disposable gloves and Tyvek coveralls that have become hard. So finding alternates in different manufacturing and overseas is a concern, and definitely having an impact on everybody. And it's not just our business. All of our competitors are in the same boat as well. So managing the supply chain and keeping our contracts with our business partners, there's certainly some some struggles in there. That's a concern, and it's changing on a month-to-month basis with what all the different manufacturers that we represent are doing and what the market is. So it's changing monthly on how things actually go, and things are starting to evolve and get caught up, and it's nice to see more manufacturing of PPE starting to happen right here in Canada. We're starting to see that it's excellent job creation in the Canadian market to help get our unemployment rate down. And we're actually also starting to see, as a benefit, more people are willing to pay that little bit more for a Canadian-made product now as well, which was ultimately the driving force to drive some of that to overseas. So
I think, with the Canadian-made product, the real benefit is it may be a bit more money sometimes, but you have that, you can put your head on the pillow at night and kind of rest that if the Canadian standards have said it's a solid mask or whatever it might be, that, there's some value, we've all talked about on the panel here, being able to put people's anxieties to rest. And I think that's as a Canadian, I think it's a great thing, right? Absolutely. So let's look at the next question here. And I know we've spent some time on this one. So I might prod you, all of you, to pick up the pace a little bit. I've got 7 questions here. We want to have time to open it up on the floor. But how has your business been affected by the spread of COVID-19 over the past few months? So a lot of you have discussed this a bit as well. But think about, I think Dale's example of how it's affected his supply chain, right? And the whole competitive landscape is a good example. It might be how it's impacted the way you engage with customers. But I'm curious if maybe you could focus on 1 or 2 elements that have impacted your business. So Joy, I'll put you on the hot seat again to start.
Well, okay, that's great. So I think the way that we're a 150-year-old association, how did business get affected? I would say hugely. Our membership benefits, based on, as I said previously, travel, etc., was absolutely impacted largely. Doing on-site training and development for sales professionals, absolutely huge impact. I think the good side was that we had started on a path of having some great individuals in the association that had lots of learning and development experience. As I said earlier, I'm the old fart in the room, but one of the first BlackBerry users, so I like technology. And when I came in here last year to head the association, I said, more things need to be online. We started early last year to move all of our programs and change. You've been a big part of this association for many years. We started moving things to online. So how did our business get affected? Everything immediately had to be online. Gratefully and strategically, we had started down that path. Without it, I think it would be really not great news right now. We were severely impacted, but the fact that we had started early to move training modules to online, getting our facilitators to be able to do that, providing work at home benefits for employees, because even before COVID, things were changing anyway. So we had started to kind of do that. So I think the one really good thing is, in this environment, you need to take change, and going forward out of this, and we'll talk about it a bit later, you need to be really agile. You need to be able to take what was done before and not say, this is the way we did it. What's a new way to look at it, and move really, really fast. So we were affected immensely. We've recouped, we've accelerated, we've done more online. And I'm really grateful today that we had a team that were smart, knew how to get ahead, worked fast and furiously. And while we took a downturn in the old traditional method of what we had, we're able to really go quickly, and we're seeing actually an increase now through COVID coming through the period that we've been at. So, as I said, really bad situation at the beginning, but we at least started. And even if you hadn't started, we tell other businesses, just go. Like, don't say I didn't do this or I should have done that. We'd all like to buy in the stock market before Apple became a big thing.
it's
Just
still
go and do
early.
it, make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go
And
make it happen.
it's still early in this massive shift. You know, we always feel like we missed out, but there's, you know, on whatever's, but we're really early. And
It is.
continuing education and, post-secondary education with the organizations that I'm working with, colleges and universities, they're actually on the increase, especially continuing ed. And so I think that people are reinvesting in there, and I don't want to get ahead of us in the questions. People are reinvesting in training.
They
and
are. Absolutely. And I'm a big believer in training. When the time is down, invest more, because, if you make yourself better, you outbeat your competition. So sometimes people look at training as, I don't need to do it, it's the first thing cut. I look at it as the first thing you should do. Make sure you have the best educated, smart people moving ahead, because they're going to make the difference and differentiate your business.
Absolutely.
Don't cut back when you think it's, well, I don't need that. Now's the time to invest and make yourself better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with that one. I'll be interested to hear the perspective from the rest of the panel on that. I think they'll probably be singing the same tune. I might shuffle things up a bit here and kind of change the order a little bit. I'm going to start with Dale now, if you don't mind, Dale, and put you on the hot seat and hear your perspective on how your business has been affected. I know that you've talked a fair bit about it, but is there any other areas that you found it's been impacted?
Well, and to be short, it's been impacted in a very large way, but also it's been impacted positively. All the different channels of our company were actually very quick to be able to react to working at home, more of a online shift, and adapting to the changing needs that have kept popping up. And very proud that we are seeing a lot of a yo-yo effect in our sales, due to circumstances that are a little bit beyond our control. But overall, considering everything, it hasn't been as bad as what some of us would have thought it would be. But it has had a big impact. But it's been because of steps and plans that Tenequip has been doing over the last several years for progression and improvement, that we've been able to adapt rather quickly to overcome these. So it could always be better, but it could always be worse as well. So let's think of it that way.
And I think if you make the list, right, of all the ways that this shift has positively impacted the trajectory of our businesses, there are a whole bunch of things. We don't think about it because we're bombarded with what's not working on every media channel. But there is a whole bunch that actually has made things healthier for us in some ways, just our outlooks. Prioritizing what's truly important in our business, right? So Doug, I'd love to hear from you, another area that's impacted your business.
Well, again, I don't think we've had much negative. We've been lucky. Our supply chain's been intact. I think there has been some positives that have come out of it. We've always had these little projects in the back of our minds we wanted to work with, that now we have the time to bring to fruition, and they're timely with COVID-19, because some of them have to do with air purification, water purification, etc. So we're moving forward with these. We're building them into our website, and we're getting more involved on the social media side of things. We actually did bring someone in specifically for that. Has been working with us since the beginning of July, and has already done some wonders for us as well. So it's been, we had some major projects that were supposed to become down the pipeline. They've been put on hold for now. That's affected a bit, but we know they're going to be coming over the next short while anyways.
Fantastic. And great to hear you're investing in your digital footprint. People are spending more time online, and the fact is that they're easier to immediately connect with because they're sitting in front of their computer a lot more. So that's a really wise decision, is to double down on that. So Marie, love to hear your perspective on another area that your business has been affected in as far as COVID-19 over the past few months.
So we've seen, no doubt, business has not come in when we thought it would this past quarter. The good news is nothing has been lost. I agree with what Doug is saying. Many of our large projects, opportunities have been deferred to a later date. There seems to be this unknown pattern that the economy is going through where we don't really have an end date to this. So everybody is still interested in the plan, but they've got a bit of a fluctuation in their own business. Some of the people have been laid off, right? So they don't want to put some of their folks through training from a corporate standpoint and then wait and do it again. So the good news is we haven't lost business. It just has not grown in the quarter as we expected. So we're feeling really optimistic that all of the prospects are still interested. The disappointing, I think, fact is the revenue is not coming in when we would like it to be, like most organizations. So unless it's an essential service now, you know, we're in the same boat as everybody else where it's just being delayed to a different time frame.
Yeah, there's a lot of deferment, to say the least. So I would spend 1 hour a day on average for every 3 hours in front of clients in the past, I would say. And now, 9 hours a day in front of the computer, right? So that's a big shift.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you can do in that environment, but some businesses just don't operate that way, and a lot will be deferred. So, Robert, love to hear your perspective on kind of how your business has been impacted by the spread of COVID-19 over the past few months.
Well, to keep it on the positive, I think one thing that was a shocking outcome was the amount of time a leadership team had to really consider and reconsider operations, continuous improvement within the organization, things you've touched on like training, all areas that impact our business, along with, of course, the use of the government programs that were available to help us bring people back much quicker than we had originally thought. It's been pretty positive from that point of view. I think we've come in very, very close to our projected targets pre-COVID because of things like that.
Yeah, there has been a lot more support and a lot quicker. Things might have, the I's might have not been dotted and the T's definitely weren't crossed on the government end, but they got it done. And I think that, that's, we can look in retrospect and criticize, but there's been some significantly good support there. And it's great to hear that you've pretty well met your projections, which is pretty amazing. So looking at the next question, and this one is around, as the pandemic continues to affect business operations, there continues to be hurdles that organizations are facing across the board. So maintaining communication and getting a response from clients, managing a relationship with clients, staying motivated, monitoring mental health of staff and emotional well-being, and even prospecting and reaching out to customers, especially for those of us that were face-to-face, industry event, networking, on site with clients. All of a sudden that's been pulled away for a lot of us. So I'm curious how have you personally encountered these hurdles? And if so, has this changed your day-to-day activity in sales for you or your salespeople? Maybe I'll start with Joy again.
Well, because there's two people on the phone here from CPSA, I'm going to let Marie answer some of the questions with regards to the salespeople. But what I could say to you, and I think it would be overarching to a lot of folks, one of the main things in any situation, particularly if it's tough, is communication. And so communication needs to happen often, and it needs to be very transparent. And so not only with our staff, with my leadership team, with our customers, with our partners, keeping an open dialogue and being as honest and transparent as you can be is really important. I mean, you would all agree on this panel that this pandemic's nothing like anything we've ever seen. I mean, I've got an 83-year-old dad. My mother-in-law's 91. They've lived through depression. There's nothing ever that hit the world the way this did. So I think the only thing you can do, and top of mind for all leaders, sales leaders or otherwise, is keeping that direct connection with all your constituents, as I said, your employees, your leaders, your partners, your members, your customers, and being as honest and real as you can be, keeping in close contact. For me, it's been about keeping people motivated. We haven't been there, so the pendulum has changed a little bit in terms of expectations and deliverables in terms of sales. Making sure that people emotionally are doing okay, that they're finding time out of the day working from home to look after themselves, not just worry about their day-to-day sales structures. And we've also spent a lot of time doing some fun stuff. I mean, while we all like to have fun together when we're in an office, we're remote. So we've done things here we've called them beer carts. We've done fitness step programs, fitness stuff, just keeping people active. With my senior leadership team, I even started with 8 o'clock every morning. We had a meeting. Get up and get ready. Get up. For the girls, get your lipstick on, get your hair done. Guys, get dressed. Sometimes it was just about, well, we're home now. How do we make that work for us? And it was just about even just getting people up, getting them going, getting them motivated, get started for the day and move on. And so for me, even outside of sales, it was get up, get at her, let's get her done, let's move, get some energy. And so to me, that was one of the biggest things, is the communication, the emotional well-being, making sure people are safe. And that comes across. If you've got happy employees, you got happy members and customers. Because if you're not happy and you're down in the dumps, boy, you sure can't as hell sell anything from your organization. So for me, it was all about making sure the well-being of employees was top of mind.
I like those morning meetings. I wish I would have known about them. I might have jumped in on a couple.
There's a few days there where I don't know. 5 o'clock in the morning, Shane.
5 in the morning. Yeah, you definitely know. You really see the authentic Shane Gibson at 5 in the morning for sure.
But it was all about get up, get started, get going. Marie would say, and she works for me, she get her pearls on, get her lipstick on, the hair is done, boom, let's go. We're, up and out. It's not the same as getting up in the morning and driving to your office. And so how do you change that and make that momentum happen? And for us, we found that was really important. To keep people and keep their relationships going with their client base and keep them going.
Mm-hmm.
So, Marie, what do you have to add to that from the perspective of the individual in the organization who's on the front lines, and your primary, action is to connect with stakeholders? How have you felt these things impacting you?
I would say that I saw everybody leading, and we had strategic meetings about this. They led with empathy every time. If it was an email to connect with the customer, it was about checking in to see how they were doing, how their business was coping before the business conversation. So I think that's part of what we train, right? Is that consultative interest in the actual well-being of the person and that customer. So all of the communication, we had a communication plan where the reps would have regular contacts without trying to impose on the customer, because you didn't know what they were going through in their business or them personally. So they were really taking, I think, a courtesy call first to check in to see how things were. And then they would get agreement for that follow-up. A big part in sales is saying, how often can I reach out to you, right? So we would get a read on that to make sure that our communication was always done with respect and empathy first, understanding that there's a lot of changes going on with people personally from a financial perspective, as well as their business. So it went very well. We got a lot of, I think, credibility with that relationship with the customer. And internally, what we saw was a lot of the hierarchy, which is very common now in large corporations, it's starting to diminish, where you have the all hands call. Everybody seemed to be on the equal level, and a lot of transparency, I think, we saw throughout the process. That was encouraged to make sure that everybody was okay. I personally we had the leadership call every morning at 8 a.m., but I had one-on-ones with everybody scheduled, as well as a team wrap up at the end of the day, just to check in. It was about them to make sure the day went okay, to find out if there's any support, and honestly, to get a read on how things were. So I think it all came about the people first. And That's why I think a lot of it is the business is just deferred, right? It's
Yeah.
not lost. It's just delayed because of the way we approached it.
And I think it's the business itself, in the way we envisioned it, might be lost, like the revenues or the specific deal. But what I'm hearing is the empathy and the relationship and the investment means that the revenues aren't lost over time, that the business relationship is intact, that in fact, if you make it through together with that client, that there's actually something to be said about that, right? The partnership and aspect. So I think I'd like to just ask now to hear from Robert and Robert and how, you know, in this area of even like reaching the right customer, you know, I'm sure your team is working on that, and keeping them motivated and managing those relationships. You know, what hurdles have you found there, or what ways have you overcome it?
I don't think I can add more to what Marie and Joy have already said, except maybe just point out one other area where I've noticed for those companies that have, you know, different departments like an outside sales team and inside customer service. And I agree, you can't possibly over communicate as long as you're not flooding their inboxes. But one thing that I've seen, especially through, you know, emails, is an increase in sort of exaggerated language that's being used in order to try and make the point for what your needs are as an outside rep or as a customer service rep or as a customer. A dramatic increase in over exaggerated language, as in, you know, this always happens and every time. Along with that, I just wanted to point out that because these departments are sociable animals, or social, and they like to interact as much, and getting together face to face is so difficult. I do see an increase in, we'll call it friction, or more of a tension between departments within our own companies, and having the time to be able to address that now is once again an added bonus to that. But I think everybody should be aware of that. We see this a little bit more often now due to COVID and their lack of ability to get together. It's a little bit more difficult to be as tense when you're looking somebody eye to eye, as opposed to through an email or a voice message saying, I need this now. That kind of interaction is really what I'm seeing an increase on.
Yeah, that's yeah, absolutely. I've experienced some of those emotions myself, you know, and it's we're isolated, and when we're missing pieces of the story, we make them up, and that can really, you know, accelerate things. So yeah, I guess playing referee as a leader and getting people to tone it down is you know, a skill set we've always had, but it sounds like you're using it more, you know. Yeah, that makes sense. So Doug, on your side, what have you seen? I know, you know, you've been full steam ahead through this whole process, but I'm curious, you've had to probably maneuver a bit on the way you're approaching the market with your team. What shifts have you seen?
That's the big thing. So, you know, as I mentioned, we have some products we sell through distributors. So, you know, I'm not really involved so much on the sales side of that, but we do have direct sales here in Canada, and it's you know, just communicating. You know, you have to be a mentor. In a lot of cases, we have a couple of newer people to the industry, so for them right now to try and reaching out to the right customer, they don't have the, you know, the background where somebody is going to take a call from them. So trying to find ways to help them to do that is important. We have a young chap in Alberta who is, you know, we just love having him, and he's actually taken the bull by the horn. And the only thing we just want to make sure is that he's not being too aggressive and upsetting people, and so that they don't want to talk to him. That's the other thing. Yeah. So, you know, but he's starting. Things are starting to happen with him. People are listening to him, and he's getting out there. And I think part of it is our brand is there, and that's the important thing as well. So
Great.
And like everybody else, I agree with what everybody else has said. It's all communication and all of that it's just very important in maintaining that.
So thank you, Dale. So what does it look like on your end with some of these potential hurdles?
Well, and we've faced all of the hurdles, and not to repeat some of the great suggestions that we have also found from Joy and Robert and Marie and Doug, but to elongate, with our teams working from home, we've noticed that it's a lot easier just to shoot an email for communication. I found that depending on the situation, popping the video chat goes a lot further, or just picking up that thing on the side of our desk called the phone and having that conversation can get it accomplished a lot quicker and a lot easier. And our teams are appreciating that personal touch a lot better. And even if it's involving more people, making it a conference call, it helps resolve things a lot quicker and a lot easier, and bridges that gap, especially when it's with different departments within the organization, or even business partner to key account manager and myself and our pricing team as well. Those little bit of extra steps have really also gone a long way in the current situation with the pandemic, to resolving a lot of things and strengthening that relationship with our business partners. And in terms of finding new prospects and reaching the customers, we've also found that our business partners and our potential business partners are also a lot more open and willing to listen when we're asking the right W questions and understanding the why and presenting the proper solutions to them and being more of a benefit. So we've also found tremendous growth in that aspect as well, by just using these twice as much as this as well. Going back to some of the basics that we've learned through also the CPSA, because we've invested in those programs for our teams as well, and focusing on that. So it works.
Fantastic. And I think that's such a great approach, is really, from this perspective, I think there's less tolerance to be pitched in this situation. A lot of people got pressure, they're in survival mode or redirection mode, and they don't want a generic feature advantage benefit thrown at them. They want us to understand their business and find ways to add value truly. Even if the value is just to have a great conversation and say, hey, let's touch base again in another 3 weeks. But I think that's a really a wise, emotionally intelligent way for you to approach your sales. So, and this kind of leads actually into the next question. Actually, Dale almost answered the next question. So, here is the question: is, the CPSA research found that 63% of sales leaders have their team putting a stronger focus on account management, which is really about relationship growth and understanding the customer better. And then 55% of sales leaders are encouraging their teams to engage in professional training and development, so growing and developing themselves. So my question, this isn't going to be a long answer. This could be a quick yes or an expansion on it if you want to share what you're doing. Has your business shifted focus in this area? And if so, why? And maybe I'll start with Robert.
No, I don't think we've shifted focus. We've always had a strong history of working in those two areas. When I saw the stat, it kind of shocked me a little bit, simply because it's something that should have been done all along. So
agreed.
It just might have been one of those areas where they were too busy to execute what we know is right for our business. So, but it doesn't really change for me.
Great, that's good to hear, and I think that's a good statement. And a lot of people are so busy landing new accounts in an up economy that they forget to really secure those accounts and do the right thing, as you said. And it's something easy to do for a lot of us. Dale, I know you finished on this, you actually kind of led us into this question. So do you have anything else to add there? It seems like you probably already did, but I'll ask you to kind of expand maybe.
Yeah, I thought these numbers were low, to follow Robert. We've always had a strong focus on the consultative sales process and securing our accounts and managing our accounts. That's our go-to-market model. We've always invested in our sales force for advancing their training. This is a must to be successful.
Fantastic. And Doug, what are you finding from your perspective?
The same. Again, these numbers I do find it, like everybody else has said, I was surprised by them, and you know, we've got a very strong focus on account management already, and you know, we encourage people to, you know, professionally train, you know, get development and training as well. So we haven't changed.
Well, you are a handpicked group of sales leaders from across the country, so you know we might have stacked the deck with people who've been investing in best practices already.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see smaller size organizations that are, you know, less structure, less maturity in their sales process, might find that they're much more ad hoc at this, right? And I think that's, you know, maybe what's going on with this data a little bit. I'd be curious to hear Joy's perspective on this.
Yeah, my perspective is completely different.
Yes, okay.
I do agree with the people that are on the phone that, you know, one of the outcomes on this panel is that you all are vested in providing great account management and great professional development. I'm a big believer in that. Marie will agree with me that I can't say we double down on account management. My team does that already. But I will tell you, running an organization and an association where professional development is important, how does an organization, and we're an association, we're not a profit organization, not for profit, our professional development training drops 70%. So while these statistics are interesting in the survey, then how does it that a not-for-profit drop their development by 70? And I will tell you that I've been in sales for 40 years. Well, maybe not quite 40, almost. I'm dating myself, I'm still 27. But you can all laugh at that one. But I will tell you that your firms have invested, and Dale, I mean, I look at Tenequet, you know, you guys decided that to make a difference in your organization and with your customers, you've invested time and money into developing your team, as the rest of you here, Robert and Doug. But I will tell you, a lot of other organizations don't. So if you think about, and that maybe I'm being old school here, a lot of times people say when the going gets tough, what do they cut first? And you guys will all agree, but not in your business right now. Training gets cut. We can leave that. And you know, I work for a great leader in Canada. I won't say who it is, but very large organization. And one of the reasons I joined that firm is the CEO said to me, Joy, I would rather invest in training for my people than taking my paycheck. And because I know if I invest in my people and I give them the right training, I'm going to have the best sales force to sell against my competitors. It's my differentiation. And that's never, ever, ever gotten away from me. And I believe that wholly, which is why I'm here. But I will say that not everybody out there does adhere to that. And it's so important to know that if you're going to be out there selling, I don't care what industry you're in or what role you're in, if you're not professional and you don't provide value to your end user, your customer who's selling to their team in the best possible way, then you're not doing yourself a favor or any of your members or customers. So I would say this is an interesting number, 55%. I would venture to say, and this is not a survey, and I know we produce the survey with help from our members, that the general populace out there does not do that. And I do think that's a challenge. And I think it's something that still needs to be addressed and needs to be done to encourage the development of the profession in Canada for us.
Yeah.
That's my personal belief, by the way, based on my years of experience across industries.
Several years back with the CPSA, we did a survey on social selling. And, you know, the response came back that, you know, over 80% of people were using it on a daily basis. And I just know that not to be true of the general sales population. But the reality is with CPSA members, it was. And I think by the nature of the CPSA member, they're investing more in themselves already by their members. Right. Marie, what's your thoughts on this? Do you have anything to kind of echo or add to what Joyce had to say?
I agree with Robert, Dale, Doug, Joy on all of this. So part of our, I mean, you know, I am a big supporter of account planning. I'm a big planner in account management. I do believe that that's where your account strategy needs to be and your time spent. And I think it's a differentiator when you're up against the competition. I'm surprised at those numbers, and I like your comment about the smaller business, and maybe that's where it applies. And I will quote that when we did our study a couple of years ago, 40% of the people had never had professional sales training that were in the sales profession. So we did that survey a couple of years ago to try to understand what the demographic looked like, where the opportunities were for sales professions. So it would be really nice to know a little bit more detail about where the 55% came from. I will say the other thing is there's been a lot of free training throughout COVID, right? I'm sure you've all heard and watched webinars yourself. So what would be interesting is to see what the scope is and if it's professional training that's been paid for or if it's something that's free, because I know even I've been following a lot of things that have been offered myself. So that's my comment there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it makes sense. So I think, again, it's always interesting to look at these stats. I think if you, divide it up by segment, market, a lot of small business people, a lot of sales professionals who work for small businesses that take some of my public courses, I'll find they've paid for it themselves, right? That their employer doesn't pay for it, and so they're investing in their career because they see the value as sales professionals, which says something about them, but that's one of the other pieces. So I'm going to kind of move us through. We've got 3 more questions. I'm not sure if we'll get through all 3 because there's also another questions coming from the audience, but I'm going to do my best to. We're definitely not going to get through all 3, but I think it's almost a 3-part question in a way, and so I'm going to try to combine them and see if I can get an overall answer from you. So the first thing is that 67% of respondents say they've implemented a business continuity or emergency preparedness process. And so what have we done with this? I think many of us have already talked about this. So I think this will be a quick answer. And if I can flip to the next slide, I want to combine them here. And then what specifically is your business planning on doing following the pandemic in order to scale up business? So what's been your continuity plan and what's your springboard plan? So what does that look like for you? Do you have one? So that's my question. And I'll start with Doug on this.
Well, I think we've had a pretty good continuity through this whole thing ourselves, luckily enough. I think, as I mentioned before, though, moving forward, we've been able to take a look at areas that we kind of had in the back of our minds, not a high priority. Now they've stepped up the priority of area markets we want to go to with specific products. We've actually found some new products as well to supply our sales reps that are related to COVID. Get them something else in their bag that they can get out there and talk to people with, and so I think that's really where we're headed. We've got a pretty good engineering, research and development team, and they're going full bore with some of these products. So.
Fantastic. Dale, what's it look like in your world?
Well, our continuity plan is, lack of a better term, we're referring to it as our COVID reserve. Was also part of the plan we had to do to maintain our essential services, where we block off and also to protect our contract and existing customer base, reserve product for food and beverage, healthcare, all the essential services and manufacturing, and so that we have a constant supply of products for them through a wide gamut of products. But we're also locating and sourcing new strategic supply to supplement our supply for that. Continuity or springboard, we're still sourcing and still knocking on doors and developing new prospects for VMI contracts and trying to continue to make a full bore assault on our competition. We are not standing back and letting people steamroll us. We continuing to invest in our sales force and continuing to go forward, and almost like COVID doesn't exist, but we have to be aware that it does exist and be cognizant of it. So game on.
Fantastic. Joy and Marie, because you're both the CPSA, I'll throw this kind of collected question out: is what's your continuity plan and what are you doing from a springboard perspective?
You want to go ahead, Marie? You want me to start?
Sure, I can talk a little bit. So I think we've seen a bit of a change in terms of our courses being put online. So I that will be a bit of our resilient plan going forward. This reminds me of technology when you ask someone to buy something for contingency and they wouldn't believe in it until the network down and they couldn't do business. So I think COVID reminds me of that. It's really shut down some businesses. We've had to revamp our business model in terms of how we deliver content. So I see us doing more online. And I also see us engaging more with what the client's needs are and doing more on-demand services because they become more flexible now that they've worked from home. So that would be my crystal ball. If I look to see what we might look like in coming out of COVID, I think we'll have a little bit more flexibility in terms of how we deliver that content to our audience and members. Joy?
Great.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit to that. We've been doing some work with quite a number of the government agencies across the country. There's programs available for retooling, retraining, reskilling. And so some of the work that we're doing is we're working on some of those renewal projects to help scale up other businesses, because we look at our business as helping other businesses. Mm-hmm. And so we're focused around what are those things that we could do to help different sectors in the economy that have been hit hard, and how do we help them grow, and what can we provide to make it more valuable to help the Canadian economy grow with employment and jobs and skills.
Great, fantastic. And Robert, what has your contingency been? What's your springboard look like? Like, what's your kind of scaling up strategy?
They're both sort of one and the same for us. So really focused on three areas. Number one, the values that drive our organization. Much like training, if you have a mission statement on your wall, it's one of the first things that can go out the window when you hit tough times. So we stay focused there, and we're going to continue to stay focused there. Number two, not letting the metrics become the strategy for your company. Everyone everywhere has been hurt and will continue to hurt to some small measure, but saying we're 38% down and we have to be at 100%, that is not a strategy. That's just a measurement, and that's not how you're going to move your business forward. So, and that hurts the people aspect of your business as well. So we have to make sure that the strategy is clearly defined and remains clearly defined. For us, we're an employee-owned and operated company. So one other area I would just add is we have been focused on this, and we will remain focused on this, and that's diversification. If your business is selling grommets and you love grommets, and grandpa was in the grommet business and you'll always be in the grommet business, good for you. But if COVID has taught us anything, now's the time to reach out to another line, another product, another division, another area in which to grow your company. Just don't fall so much in love with your company line or your product that you're going to limit yourself. Down here in the US, they have a bus company as part of our organization. They went out and bought another product that disinfects buses and schools, and it's a spray device, whereas it would take 2 hours to clean and now it takes 20 minutes to go to your office. So there's a really good example of looking at something to modify your business model. It's business 101, but we seem to have forgotten that over the years, I think.
No, I think that's fantastic. And it was interesting because I was last night on the phone talking to a senior business development person who is out of work due to COVID, who I've known for years and worked with them. And I talked to him about, approaching organizations that don't have job openings and pitching them on a position specifically for him with his skill set that he could help. And he's like, oh, how open are people going to be to that? And I'm like, if there's any time that you want to try something new, it's now. Because when someone says, well, we've always done it this way, it doesn't matter. Because what worked before, we're in a complete reset in a new environment. And so I think that creativity and that willingness to say what if is part of our survival,
Absolutely.
So, final question, and I know we went over some questions, so this is a really quick question, is, and I'd like literally to be like a 20-second answer here, so it's like a hot seat here, and then I want to open this up to the floor, is what do you expect to be most different once things return to normal? And whoever wants to jump in, whoever's got top of mind here.
Can I go?
Yeah. Go ahead, Robert.
Sorry. The new normal, that, I hate that phrase. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
So the only thing I would like to say on this topic is hopefully when we return to the new normal, that phrase disappears. As leaders, it's not up to us to wait for the new normal. It's up to us to create it. And I think what we can do is make the new normal a lot of what we used to do, along with the improvements that we all talked about today. So I'm just hoping that phrase dies.
And I have to say, Robert, I absolutely agree with you. What is normal? Normal is never normal. It's a new way of what we've learned. So thank you for saying that. We want to get rid of that. And the other word I don't like is pivot. So you know what? We're learning and changing as we go. And Robert, that's very true. What is the new normal? Like, normal is what we're living every day. So I echo exactly what you just said. So thank you for that.
Having been affected by SARS back in 2003 in the healthcare industry, it took a while for things to get back to normal, but there were changes, and a lot more. It used to be you could just walk into a hospital and go anywhere, and then they started locking things down. And part of that was SARS, part of that was other things. And I think what I'm going to see, we're probably going to see more and more, is going to be using Zoom and team meetings and things like that to communicate.
That's right.
We've had major conferences canceled this year, and I don't know when they're going to come back. There's some that they're planning later in the year in the States. We've decided we're not going to go. So, it's, and now they're talking about having virtual trade shows. So I think I see a lot more of that coming along.
Yeah, absolutely. Dale, Marie?
The sales call, it's going to take a while for a sales call to be considered normal again, if you ever will be.
Yeah.
We see a lot more internet traffic. There's a lot more video, and you know what? 6 months ago, people weren't comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are, and I see technology is really starting to be a lot more welcome, and it's also a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
Do I really need to go to BC to see the problem on that line to fix it? Where 5-minute video and I've got it solved in 10 minutes without having to go there. So I think we're going to see the entire way that we used to do things. I'm not going to use the new normal, Robert, because that phrase also bugs me. I think we're going to continue to see that adapt and that evolve. That could also, we're going to see a lot more changes that come out of this as time progresses. So I think we're going to be a long way away before we actually see how all this settles, and it's exciting. And you're absolutely right that we are now in the part as the leaders where we're going to be creating how that plays out and what those expectations can be. And it's actually very exciting to be a part of that and see how that gets to go. So if we all collectively put our heads together and come up with the right way to do things, we have a tremendous power to influence what the future is going to hold. And that is powerful and exciting. Looking forward to it.
That was like a great motivational speech right there. Honestly, I'm fired up about the next normal just from that perspective, because I do believe, like yourself, Dale, that we let the genie out of the bottle, and from buyers to senior executives to salespeople, we've discovered that we can actually be more efficient in the way we sell, leveraging these tools, and maybe have more time to do other stuff. Really, we can be efficient. Marie.
Yes, I would say that the positive thing that's come out of COVID is it's been a great test to focus on the resilience of your business model and the skills of the people. So I believe that people will look within themselves to decide what they need to do to be the best within that organization. And I think the company will look at itself to say, how resilient are we and how efficient is our business model? So I think a lot of positive will come out of this. I view it more as a test to see from a competitive standpoint, because of course I'm in sales, who the winner will be, and that will have that sustainable business model and be willing to be more flexible and look within at the strength on a regular basis, not just when a thing like COVID happens. So that's the lesson I think everybody learned from this.
Absolutely.
And if I could just add one thing, Shane, you know, being in the
Yes.
sales association here and being a big believer in sales, and we've got all these sales people on the phone today in different capacities. Sales is about creating, you know, awareness, is about creating solutions for people in need. It is one of the most creative jobs you can have. And I think, you know, we talked about the normal and the new way. Salespeople have the opportunity to create what is that new way of doing business. You can use your creative genes, ways to look and solution to help provide those solutions to your customers. And so I look at it as a very creative career to leash what is the art of the possible to people and come up with that and push and shove and come out with what that is. And it changes day to day, and technologies change so fast. Use that to your ability to provide what your end user client needs to have.
Fantastic, fantastic. I can't think of, you know, much beyond what you've all shared as far as what the next, you know, when things go back to normal look like. I joked one day that the big difference is that every 68-year-old grandmother knows how to use Zoom now, which is something we never expected to happen. But I think that speaks to across the board, where our tech savviness and our digital fluency has increased, that we really have been forced to see the benefits of the tool. And I believe that a digital first strategy is actually a customer centric strategy, because that's where our customers want to connect with us. So Rupalin, I'm going to pass it over to you. We've got 11 minutes left to do some Q&A, probably time for 2 or 3 questions, 4 questions, 5 for us to field. We'll see how far we get.
Thanks so much, everyone, and thank you so much to our panel for such a fantastic and informative webinar today. We do have, like Shane said, 10 minutes to answer some questions, so I'll get started now. Here's a good one. In addition to virtual conferencing tools such as Zoom, GoToWebinar, what sales technology have the panelists been using more since COVID-19?
So I can answer that. So I would say internally, anybody that's using Microsoft, which is probably 99.9% of people, right, that run a business are using Teams for internal discussions. And I think external calls, anybody that's got some type of a unified communications installed would be able to do that using Zoom or a third party.
Yep, I agree. We use Teams and Zoom and GoToMeeting.
Yeah, I think for me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joy.
I think that some of the old stuff that changed over time, where people were going behind emails, I think more and more people are using their phone to reach out, whether it's video or call. There are more calls happening than emails, so that they can stay connected.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I'm seeing that sales professionals that are really good on the phone are doing just as well as those that are using video. Although statistics will say video is a better choice, if you're good with the phone, you can really be efficient, and it's a lost art for many. The one I've started to use and I've seen people invest more in again is getting back to investing in tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So you have better data faster on your customer. I think as you have less of that one-to-one connection and conversation and informal data generation, using tools like Zoom Info or Sales Navigator has been something I've seen people really invest in. So Rupalin, next question, please and thank you.
Next one here, looking for more of a perspective. If I'm considering a career in sales, is right now a good time to make the move?
I'll take that one. So when I started out in sales, it was in automotive sales, and of course I picked a career where, you know, you'd be vilified as a character in a movie. Nobody liked it. But I did that purposely because I was kind of a shy person and an introvert. And I did that at a time when interest rates on a vehicle was 9.875% to lease a vehicle. If you get into sales during a downturn, during a difficult time, and you find a job that has, both a bit of a base and an incentive a commission structure as well, the training you will get fighting through hard times will surpass any book or any course you could ever take on sales. So I highly recommend it. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I'm not going to say it is going to make you pull your hair out, but now is the time more so than in booming times. You work your way through this, you'll be a rock star.
But when I start, absolutely, and I think about when I started off in sales. Now I'm a bit of a weirdo because my dad was a sales trainer and professional speaker, so I was born in a family of sales trainers. But with that said, the availability of programs like CPSA's, designations and true in-depth competency map wasn't available. If you want to look at an on-ramp for a career that didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago, that type of training that's available, and I know this is a CPSA biased pitch, but it's a great time to start because there is no guessing. And if you just apply the fundamentals and work hard, you're going to win. And so I think there is no better time. Plus, in a down economy, your competitors have been beat up and a bit emotionally traumatized. If you start fresh at the bottom, I think you might have an advantage. So I think this is a great time to start.
And I think I would agree with the fact that sales is in every type of industry and organization. So the one very positive thing about a sales career is once you get the basic skills down, you can apply that in any industry you're interested in, because every business has to have a sales force to run their business, right? So it's an interesting position to be in, and you've got a lot of flexibility regardless of what industry interests you.
Yeah, and I would just add one other thing outside of all the industry stuff. One of the other areas that's giving a lot of credibility to sales right now as well is the undergraduate programs across the universities in Canada and in the US as well, and globally. And if you go and look at Ryerson in Toronto, if you look at St. Mary's University in Halifax, if you go out west to Simon Fraser or Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, they all have sales programs. The smaller colleges, HEC in Montreal, they just came out of a cohort of 400 students that have programming in their undergraduate program for sales. So the universities have seen that globally there is a huge, as Marie said, it goes cross industry, engineers, medical, automotive, manufacturing, distribution, technology, telecom. They all need people to sell the things that they produce. And the undergraduate programs in the business schools, we're reaching out to engineering and medical programs right now. They're all offering undergrad certifications in sales programs. So I think that you'll see there's sales competitions out there, cross-border. Canadian universities are down in the US, there's global ones. It's a huge career that people had not seen as a profession in the past. And the opportunity is just at a groundswell. And so coming out of COVID and moving into the next few years, there's so many people that need sales educated people. And so having the universities, colleges lined up, having industry running programs, having associations, we're all a big network of people together that are showing that there is a requirement, a need, and it is a great career for you.
Fantastic. So we've got one more question, I think. Is there another question there, Rupalin?
There are no more questions. You've answered them all.
Great. Well, I think that, sales, kind of piggybacking on what Joy had to say is I've seen this I have a monthly, well, not right now, obviously, but I had a monthly networking event in Vancouver where we'd have between 60 and 150 sales professionals come out with guest speakers, and we'd have some cocktails and network and meet each other. And what I found interesting is, it's taken different forms, but it's been around for about a decade. And if I look at who was going a decade ago versus who's going now, it's just that. It's young people in their 20s are like half the room, and they're excited about seeing sales as a true profession. They're researching it. They're looking at what companies to work for, who's going to help them grow. And it's actually seen as a legit, valid career, not as Robert said, not an evil villain in a movie anymore, right? And so I think that there is the reality that nothing happens until someone sells something. And organizations are realizing that, and you can write your own ticket. I mean, there's a lot of CEOs. I think Fortune 500 CEOs, I'd read a stat that, over half of them come from a sales background. So there's definitely upward mobility as well, especially with some formalized education. So I think it's a really valuable career. I'm of course a third generation person, so I'm totally biased. My grandmother taught my dad how to sell. And then my dad ended up being a sales trainer. And so I can't get away from it, but it's a great career and it's evolved so much. So I'm going to hand it back to Rublin to wrap things up.
For sure. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody on behalf of the Canadian Professional Sales Association. Doug, Shane, Dale, Marie, Joy, and Robert, thank you so much for taking part in such a valuable webinar for our sales community. And for any upcoming webinars and sales training you might be interested in, please stay tuned on cpsa.com/calendar, and you will find everything listed there. For everybody who joined us today, thank you so much and happy selling. Have a great
day.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you very much, everyone.
It was nice meeting you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.